Get out of my way, Margaret. You're always in the way. Karen shoved past me so hard I stumbled against the wall. My hip hit the corner of the doorframe. Pain shot through my body. But she didn't look back. She was too busy dragging my mattress down the hallway, while my son David carried the other end. "Where are you taking my bed?" I asked, my voice shaking. David didn't even meet my eyes. "Bella needs it, Mom. She's getting old. Her joints hurt." Their dog. They were giving my bed to their dog. I stood there 78 years old, watching my own son choose a golden retriever over his mother. That was Tuesday. By Friday, they were all holding eviction notices with my signature at the bottom. If you want to hear how a quiet old woman took back everything they stole from her, subscribe to this channel and stay until the end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story travels. Now let me tell you how it all began. The phone call came on a Sunday evening in March. I was sitting in Robert's old armchair, the one he'd claimed as his throne for 32 years of marriage. He'd been gone for 3 years now, but I still talked to his photograph every night before bed. I told him about my day, about the birds at the feeder, about how quiet the house had become. Too quiet sometimes. When the phone rang, I almost didn't answer. Telemarketers, I thought. They always called during dinner time. But something made me reach for it. Mom. It was David, my only child. The boy I'd rocked to sleep helped with homework driven to baseball practice every Saturday for 6 years. The man who now called me maybe once a month if I was lucky. "David, is everything all right?" There was a pause. That pause told me everything. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something." I gripped the phone tighter. "What's wrong? Are the kids okay? Is Karen?" "Everyone's fine, Mom. Everyone's fine." Another pause. "It's just, we've hit a rough patch, financially." I waited. "The company downsized. They let go of half my department. I got the notice last Friday." My heart sank. "Oh, David, I'm so sorry." "It's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but we'll figure it out. We always do." He cleared his throat. "The thing is, Mom, our lease is up next month, and with me being out of work, we can't really afford to renew. We've been looking at other places, but everything's so expensive now, and with 2 kids. I knew what was coming. A mother always knows. We were wondering if maybe, just for a month or 2, we could stay with you. Just until I find something new. Karen's been picking up extra shifts at the hospital, but it's not enough to cover everything." I looked around my living room. Robert's books still lined the shelves. His reading glasses sat on the side table where he'd left them the morning of his heart attack. Everything was exactly where it had been for 40 years. "Of course you can stay," I said. "This is your home too, David. It always will be." "Really, Mom, thank you so much. You don't know what this means to us." "When do you need to move in?" "Would next weekend work? I know it's soon, but next weekend is fine. I'll get the guest room ready." After I hung up, I sat in the silence for a long moment. Then I looked at Robert's photograph. "Our boy needs help," I whispered. "That's what family does, right? We help each other." Robert smiled back at me from the frame, frozen in a moment from our 30th anniversary. He didn't answer, of course, but I imagined what he would have said. "Just be careful, Maggie. Don't let them walk all over you." I should have listened to that imaginary voice. I should have listened. The next Saturday they arrived. David pulled into the driveway in a rented moving truck. Karen followed in their SUV with the kids, Tyler, who was 12, and Emma, who was 9. And Bella, of course. The golden retriever bounded out of the car before anyone else racing across my lawn, trampling the flower bed I'd spent all spring planting. "Bella! Come back here," Karen shouted, but she didn't actually move to catch her. The dog ignored her completely, running circles around the yard like she owned the place. I came down the porch steps, arms open for my grandchildren. Emma reached me first, throwing her arms around my waist. "Grandma, we're going to live with you." "Just for a little while, sweetheart." Tyler hung back, face buried in his phone. He was at that age. I remember David being the same way, too cool for hugs, too important for family. "Tyler," Karen said sharply, "say hello to your grandmother." "Hey, Grandma." That was it. One word, no eye contact, no affection. I told myself it was normal. Kids these days were different. Karen approached me last. She was wearing designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, yoga pants that probably cost more than my weekly groceries, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Margaret, thank you so much for doing this. You're a lifesaver." She hugged me briefly, more of a lean-in than an actual embrace, and then immediately started directing David on which boxes to bring in first. "The kitchen stuff goes in last. We need the bedroom things now, and make sure you're careful with my vanity mirror. It was expensive." I watched them unload the truck box after box after box. It seemed like a lot of belongings for a month or two stay. "Can I help with anything?" I offered. Karen waved her hand dismissively. "Oh no, Margaret, you just rest. We've got it handled." She said it sweetly, but there was something underneath, something that made me feel like I was already in the way. "I made dinner," I said. "Pot roast, David's favorite." David looked up from a stack of boxes, and for a moment I saw my little boy again. "Really, Mom, with the carrots and potatoes the way you used to make it." "Exactly the way you like it." He grinned. "You're the best." Karen's smile tightened. "That's so sweet, Margaret. But we actually stopped for food on the way. The kids were hungry. We got them McDonald's." The pot roast sat in my oven keeping warm. It had taken me 3 hours to prepare. "Oh," I said. "Well, it'll keep until tomorrow." "Actually, I'm on a low-carb diet right now. Red meat isn't really my thing, but I'm sure David will eat it eventually." Eventually. I nodded and went back inside, leaving them to their boxes. That night, I wrapped the pot roast in foil and put it in the refrigerator. No one mentioned it the next day, or the day after that. A week later, I threw it away. The first real problem came 12 days after they moved in. I woke up at 7 like I always did and shuffled to the kitchen to make my coffee. The routine was sacred to me. Coffee in Robert's old mug, 2 slices of toast with strawberry jam, the morning news on the small television I kept on the counter. But when I reached the kitchen, I stopped in the doorway. I didn't recognize it. My counters, usually clean and organized, were covered with appliances I'd never seen before. A massive espresso machine, a NutriBullet blender, some kind of air fryer that took up half the space near the stove. My canisters, the ones with the hand-painted flowers that Robert's mother had given me as a wedding gift, had been moved to the top shelf of the pantry. In their place sat sleek, modern containers labeled in Karen's handwriting quinoa, chia seeds, protein powder. I opened the cabinet where I kept my coffee. It was full of supplements, vitamin bottles, something called adaptogenic mushroom blend. My coffee was gone. "Oh, you're up." I turned. Karen stood in the doorway, fresh from a morning run, wireless earbuds still in her ears. "I was looking for my coffee," I said. "Oh, that old stuff, I tossed it. It was so stale, Margaret. I could smell it through the can. I got you some of mine. It's organic, shade-grown, single origin. Much better for you. It's in the cabinet above the stove." The cabinet above the stove, the one I couldn't reach without a step stool. "I've been drinking that brand for 20 years, I said quietly. Karen laughed like I'd told a joke. "Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Time for an upgrade. Trust me, once you try the good stuff, you'll never go back." She breezed past me, grabbing a protein shake from the refrigerator, my refrigerator packed now with her almond milk and Greek yogurt and things I couldn't pronounce. "I reorganized a few things in here," she said casually. "It was kind of chaotic before. No offense. I just like systems. Everything has its place, you know. No offense. People always say that right before they offend you." "I had a system," I said. "I knew where everything was." Karen paused protein shake halfway to her lips. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance, maybe. Irritation. Then it was gone, replaced by that smooth smile. "Of course you did, Margaret, but this is better, more efficient. You'll get used to it." She walked out, thumb already scrolling through her phone. I stood alone in my own kitchen, surrounded by things that weren't mine, looking for coffee I couldn't reach. That was day 12. It got worse. By the end of the first month, they had taken over the office. David approached me one evening while I was watching my shows. He had that look on his face, the one I remembered from when he was 17 and wanted to borrow the car. "Mom, I need to ask you something. I muted the television. What is it? Tyler's really struggling with his schoolwork. He needs a quiet place to study. And with Emma always running around the guest room isn't cutting it. I waited. We were thinking, the office isn't really being used, is it? I mean, you don't work anymore. We could set up a study space for Tyler in there, just until he gets his grades up. The office. Robert's office. His desk was still in there, his filing cabinets, the books he'd collected over his career as an accountant, the framed certificates on the wall, the photograph of the two of us on our honeymoon in Niagara Falls. David, that's your father's room. Dad's been gone for 3 years, Mom. The words hit me like a slap. I know how long he's been gone. I count every day. David's face softened. I didn't mean it like that. It's a room, Mom. It's not doing anyone any good just sitting there like a shrine. A shrine? Your father spent 30 years in that room. He built his career there. He planned for our retirement. Mom. David held up his hand. It's fine. Forget I asked. Tyler can just keep struggling. It's not that big of a deal. He started to walk away, and I felt the guilt wrap around my throat like a fist. Wait. He turned. Give me a few days. I'll box up some things. Make space for Tyler's desk. David smiled. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. He disappeared down the hallway, and I heard him tell Karen. She said yes. Told you she would, Karen replied. She can't say no to anything. I sat very still, their words ringing in my ears. She can't say no to anything. Was that what they thought of me? Was that what I'd become? The next morning I started packing up Robert's things. His books went into boxes. His files went into the attic. His certificates came off the wall. I cried the entire time, but I did it quietly so no one would hear. When I took down the Niagara Falls photograph, I pressed it to my chest and whispered, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Robert would have been furious. He would have told David no. He would have protected what was ours. But Robert was gone. And I was alone, and my son needed my help. That's what I told myself. That's how I justified every surrender. The den went next. It happened 3 weeks after the office. Karen announced it at dinner. My dinner, though you wouldn't know it by the way she controlled the conversation. We've been talking, she said, glancing at David, and the kids really need a dedicated play space. The guest room is too cramped, and they're always underfoot in the living room. I set down my fork. A play space. The den would be perfect. It's not like you use it for anything important. Not anything important. I spent my evenings in that den. I did my crossword puzzles there. I called my sister Betty from there every Sunday afternoon. I watched old movies on the small TV, the ones Robert and I used to love. I use it every day, I said. Karen's eyebrows rose. For what? For living. For being in my own home. Margaret. She said my name slowly, like she was explaining something to a child. You have the entire living room. You have your bedroom. The kids have nothing. They're cooped up all day. They need space to run around. They have the backyard. It's too cold outside. It's April. Karen's jaw tightened. She looked at David and something passed between them. A signal. A strategy. David reached over and put his hand on mine. Mom, we're not asking to take anything away from you. We're asking to share. That's all. Family shares, right? Isn't that what you always taught me? He was using my own words against me. I looked at Tyler, who was ignoring us completely, earbuds and eyes on his phone. I looked at Emma, who was drawing something on a napkin, oblivious. They didn't seem particularly desperate for play space. But what did I know? I was just an old woman. I was just in the way. Fine, I said. Take the den. Karen smiled. Thank you, Margaret. We really appreciate it. That night I lay in bed listening to them rearrange my furniture. They didn't even wait until morning. The couch I'd bought with Robert for our 20th anniversary was dragged out to the garage. The television was disconnected and carried to their room. By the time I woke up, the den was full of plastic toys, a gaming console, and a giant beanbag chair that blocked the window. My crossword puzzles were in a box by the door. We weren't sure where you wanted these, David said casually. We can put them in the attic with Dad's stuff. The attic, with everything else they'd erased. I'll take them to my room, I said. He shrugged. Whatever works for you. I carried the box down the hallway, and no one offered to help. The living room was next. Karen didn't ask this time. She informed. We're having some of David's old colleagues over this weekend, she announced on a Thursday morning. A networking thing, really important for his job search. I nodded. That's fine. I can make something. Oh, we're catering, but thanks. She paused, surveying the living room with a critical eye. The thing is, this furniture, it's a bit dated. It doesn't exactly give the right impression. I looked at my furniture. The floral sofa I'd picked out in 1985. The oak coffee table Robert had built with his own hands. The armchair where I'd read bedtime stories to David. Where I'd held my grandchildren as babies. Where I'd sat for hours after Robert's funeral because I couldn't make myself get up. What kind of impression does it give? I asked. Karen wrinkled her nose. Old-fashioned. Kind of sad. Sad. My life was sad to her. We found some great pieces on Wayfair, she continued brightly. Modern, sophisticated. David's already ordered them. They'll be here tomorrow. I stared at her. You ordered furniture for my living room. For our living room, Margaret. We all live here now, and honestly, this stuff was falling apart anyway. You'll love the new pieces. They're gray. Very neutral. Gray. Robert hated gray. He said it was the color of nothing. I don't want new furniture, I said. I want my furniture. Karen's smile froze. Well, that's not really practical, is it? The new stuff is already paid for. The delivery is scheduled. We can't just cancel everything because you're attached to some old couch. It's not just some old couch, it's Margaret. Her voice sharpened. I'm trying to help this family. David needs a job. This networking event could change everything for us. Are you really going to make this about furniture? David appeared in the doorway, sensing conflict. What's going on? Your mother doesn't want us to update the living room. David sighed. Mom, come on. We talked about this. We didn't talk about anything. She just told me. We're all making sacrifices here, David interrupted. You're not the only one adjusting. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come. They were both looking at me like I was the problem, like I was the one being unreasonable. I was 78 years old. I had lived in this house for 40 years. I had raised a child here, buried a husband, built a life within these walls. But standing in my own living room, surrounded by my own belongings, I felt like a stranger. Fine, I whispered. Do whatever you want. Karen's smile returned immediately. Thank you, Margaret. You won't regret it. She was wrong. I regretted it that Friday when strangers carried out my sofa. I regretted it when Robert's coffee table was loaded onto a truck and driven away forever. I regretted it when I came downstairs Saturday morning and didn't recognize a single piece of furniture in my own home. Everything was gray, just like Karen wanted. The guest room became their permanent bedroom. The office became Tyler's gaming cave, not a study space, a gaming cave full of expensive equipment that apparently they could afford, despite being broke. The den became a disaster zone of toys and scattered snacks. The living room became Karen's showcase, where I was allowed to sit only if I promised not to mess up the cushions. I retreated to my bedroom, the one room they hadn't touched. It became my sanctuary, the last piece of my life that was still mine. I kept Robert's photograph on the nightstand. His bathrobe hung in the closet. His side of the bed remained empty, just as it had been since the night he died. At night, I would lie there and talk to him. They're taking everything, Robert, piece by piece. I don't know how to stop them. I imagined his answer. Stand up for yourself, Maggie. This is your house. But he's my son. He's also a grown man who should know better. I knew he was right. The Robert in my head was always right. But the Robert in my head wasn't here, wasn't solid, wasn't real. And I was tired. So tired. The kind of tired that settles in your bones and makes everything feel impossible. I stopped fighting. I stopped questioning. I just accepted. Every morning I woke up earlier to avoid them. I took my coffee, the kind Karen bought, which I still couldn't reach, and sat on the back porch while they had breakfast. I ate dinner after they finished reheating whatever was left over. I watched my television shows on my tablet in my room with headphones in so I wouldn't disturb anyone. I became a ghost in my own house, and no one seemed to notice. No one seemed to care. 3 months in, I found David standing in the hallway staring at my bedroom door. David, is something wrong? He jumped like I'd startled him. Mom, I didn't see you there. Of course he didn't. No one ever did anymore. I was just thinking, he said slowly, about space. My stomach dropped. Space. The kids are getting older. Emma's been sharing a room with Tyler, and it's not really appropriate anymore. They fight all the time. And Bella, she's been having trouble with the stairs. The vet says it's her hips. I didn't respond. I just waited for the thing I knew was coming. We were thinking, your room is the biggest, and it's on the first floor. No stairs for Bella, and it has that attached bathroom so Karen wouldn't have to share with the kids anymore. You want my bedroom. Not want. He held up his hands. We're just exploring options. You could take the guest room upstairs. It's perfectly nice. Smaller, but you're just one person, right? Just one person. As if the size of my body determined the size of my worth. David, that room is... I know. It was you and Dad's room. I get it. But Mom, Dad's gone. He's been gone for 3 years. And we're here. We're alive. We're trying to build a life. Build a life. In my house. With my things. In my room. I need to think about it, I said. David's face flickered with frustration. What's there to think about? It's a bedroom, Mom. It's walls and a floor and a ceiling. It's not sacred ground. It's sacred to me. He exhaled sharply. Fine. Think about it. But don't take too long. Emma's really struggling, and Bella. Well, the vet said the stairs could seriously injure her if she falls. He walked away, leaving me standing in the hallway, trembling. The vet said the stairs could injure the dog. What about me? What about my hips, my knees, my balance? What about the fact that I'd fallen twice on those stairs already, when no one was watching? No one asked how I would manage upstairs. No one asked if I was okay. They only asked what I could give. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, Robert's bed, our bed, and cried until I had nothing left. Then I made a decision. I would say no. For the first time in 3 months, I would say no. The next morning, I found David at the breakfast table. I've thought about it, I said before I lost my nerve. And the answer is no, I'm keeping my bedroom. David looked up from his phone. What? My room, I'm keeping it. Karen walked in behind me, 2 cups of her organic coffee in hand. What's going on? Mom says she won't give up her room. Karen's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me? It's my room, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's been my room for 40 years. I'm not moving to the upstairs. Margaret. Karen set down the coffee cups with a sharp click. We have discussed this. Emma needs her own space. Bella needs access to a ground floor room. This is about the well-being of the entire family. I'm part of the family too. The words came out stronger than I expected. Karen actually took a step back. Of course you are, she said slowly. No one is saying you're not. Then why does my well-being not matter? Why am I the only one expected to sacrifice? David stood up. Mom, that's not fair. We've all made sacrifices. What have you sacrificed, David? What have any of you given up? Silence. They had no answer because there was no answer. Karen recovered first. Margaret, I understand this is difficult. Change is always difficult, but we're trying to do what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone is me living in my own bedroom, in my own house, on the ground floor where I can safely access the bathroom at night without falling down the stairs. Karen's eyes narrowed. You're being dramatic. I've fallen twice on those stairs already. That stopped them both. David's face went pale. You fell when... Why didn't you tell us? When would I have told you you're never around? You don't ask how I am. You don't notice me at all unless you need something. David sat back down heavily. He rubbed his face with both hands. Mom, I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. The kitchen was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Karen stood rigid, arms crossed, clearly, furious, but containing it. Finally, David spoke. Okay, you're right. We'll figure something else out for Emma. The bedroom is yours. Karen opened her mouth to protest, but David cut her off with a look. It's her house, Karen. We can't force her out of her own room. For one brief, beautiful moment, I felt like my son was back. The boy who used to defend me against playground bullies, the teenager who brought me flowers when I was sick, the man who cried at his father's funeral and promised to always take care of me. Karen said nothing. She just picked up her coffee and walked out, heels clicking sharply against the floor. I used to mop myself before they decided it was too slippery and covered it with rugs. David looked at me, something like guilt flickering in his eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't realize things had gotten so bad. Open your eyes, David. That's all I ask. Just open your eyes. He nodded slowly. I will. I promise. He didn't keep that promise. Of course he didn't. But for one morning, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would get better. 2 weeks after our kitchen confrontation, I woke up to the sound of scraping. It was early before 6, and the noise was coming from down the hall, a dragging sound like furniture being moved. I put on my robe and walked toward the noise. It was coming from the laundry room of all places. I opened the door and found Karen inside moving boxes. What are you doing? She jumped, clearly not expecting me. Margaret, you're up early. What are you doing? I repeated. Just reorganizing, making some space. She gestured vaguely at the narrow room. This room gets so much natural light in the morning. It's actually quite pleasant. I looked around. The laundry room was barely larger than a closet. It held the washer, the dryer, a utility sink, and just enough space to stand and fold clothes. There was no natural light. There was one small window above the dryer that looked out at the fence. Pleasant for what? Karen smiled that smile, the one that meant she was about to say something terrible, in the sweetest possible voice. Well, I've been thinking about the bedroom situation. And I know you said no, but I really think if we approached it differently, I said no. I heard you. But Margaret, what if we set up something really nice for you in here? We could get a comfortable daybed. One of those fancy Japanese-style sleeping mats. Bella could have your room just for sleeping, and you could have this whole space to yourself during the day. I stared at her. She was actually suggesting I move into the laundry room. Karen, this is where I wash clothes. It's multi-purpose. That's the beauty of it. Very minimalist, very zen. It's a laundry room. It's close to the bathroom, ground floor, no stairs, perfect for someone your age. Someone your age. There it was, the real message barely hidden. You're old. You don't need much. You should be grateful for whatever scraps we give you. I'm not moving into the laundry room so your dog can have my bedroom. Karen's smile vanished. I'm trying to help you, Margaret. I'm trying to find solutions that work for everyone. Everyone except me. That's not true. Isn't it? You've taken my kitchen, my office, my den, my living room. You've rearranged my entire life to suit your comfort. And now you want to put me in a closet so a dog can sleep on my mattress. Bella is part of this family. So am I. My voice cracked. So am I, Karen. Or at least I used to be. She said nothing. Her face was hard, unreadable. This conversation is over, I said. I'm keeping my bedroom. End of discussion. I walked back to my room and closed the door. But I could still hear her out there moving boxes, measuring spaces. And I knew in my bones that the conversation was far from over. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were the days I called my sister Betty. We'd talk for an hour, catching up on grandchildren and recipes and the small dramas of aging. It was the highlight of my week. But that Tuesday, Betty was sick with a cold, and our call was short. I hung up around 4 o'clock and decided to take a nap. I walked to my bedroom, turned the handle, and pushed open the door, and stopped. Bella was on my bed, sprawled across the middle of my mattress, on top of my grandmother's quilt, her muddy paws leaving streaks on the fabric. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was my pillow. It was on the floor, tossed aside like garbage, and in its place was a dog toy, a stuffed squirrel, torn and slobbery. And the worst part, after that, my nightstand. Robert's photograph, the one I'd looked at every night for 3 years, had been moved, pushed aside to make room for a dog bowl filled with water. What? I couldn't finish the sentence. My throat closed up. Footsteps behind me. David's voice. "Oh, Mom, you're home." I turned slowly. He stood in the hallway, arms folded, face completely calm. "David, why is the dog on my bed?" Bella needed a softer place to sleep. Her joints are really bothering her. The vet said, "I don't care what the vet said." My voice shook. "That is my bed, my room, my things." "Mom, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. Your wife just—" I pointed at the doorway where Karen was now appearing, that smile on her face. "She just moved a dog into my bedroom." "We moved Bella into the bedroom," Karen corrected smoothly. "There's a difference. And we moved your things to the laundry room. It's all set up, very cozy. You should come see." "The laundry room? It's actually quite nice. I put in a little cot, some of your books. You put me in the laundry room. We put your things in the laundry room, temporarily, just until Bella's feeling better." I looked at my son, my only child, the baby I had nursed and rocked and loved with every fiber of my being. "David, tell me you didn't agree to this." He couldn't meet my eyes. "Mom, it's just for a little while. Bella really does need—" "The dog. You chose the dog over your mother." "It's not about choosing. It's exactly about choosing." I was shouting now, something I hadn't done in years. "You chose a golden retriever over the woman who gave birth to you, who raised you, who opened her home to you when you had nowhere else to go." Karen stepped forward. "Margaret, you need to calm down. You're being hysterical." "I am not hysterical. I am clear. I am finally clear." I walked past them both, straight to the laundry room. They had set up a cot against the washing machine, a single pillow, a thin blanket, my crossword puzzle books stacked on top of the dryer, no photographs, no personal items, no trace of the life I'd built, just a cot, in a laundry room, next to a dryer, for a woman who had lived in this house for 40 years. I turned around. David and Karen stood in the doorway watching me like I was a problem to be managed. "You have 3 days, I said. Karen blinked. "What? 3 days to get out of my house?" David laughed, actually laughed. "Mom, come on. You're upset. You don't mean that." "I have never meant anything more in my entire life." His smile faded. "You can't kick us out. We're family." Family doesn't put each other in laundry rooms. Family doesn't throw away photographs. Family doesn't choose a dog over a mother. "Mom, 3 days, David. That's more than you deserve." I walked to the kitchen, hands trembling, and picked up the phone. "Who are you calling?" Karen demanded. "A lawyer." The color drained from her face. "You're bluffing. Try me." I dialed the number I'd kept in my address book for 15 years. Margaret Patterson, the attorney who'd helped Robert set up our estate planning. Her office was closed for the evening, but I left a message. "This is Margaret Hayes. I need to discuss eviction procedures. Please call me back at your earliest convenience." When I hung up, Karen and David were staring at me like they'd never seen me before. Maybe they hadn't. Maybe the woman they thought they knew, the soft, accommodating, easily manipulated old lady, had never really existed. Or maybe she had, and they had killed her slowly over 6 months of small cruelties and casual disregard. Either way, she was gone now. And in her place stood someone they didn't recognize. Someone who wasn't going to take it anymore. 3 days, I repeated, starting now. I walked past them back to the laundry room and closed the door. Behind me, I heard Karen's voice, shrill and furious. "She can't do this! She absolutely cannot do this!" And David's voice, quiet and uncertain. "I think she just did." I sat on the cot, my cot in my laundry room in my house, and for the first time in 6 months I smiled. They thought they'd broken me. They were wrong. They had woken me up. And now, finally, I was going to fight back. That night, I did not sleep. I lay on that narrow cot, listening to the hum of the dryer beside me, and I waited. Waited for David to knock on the door. Waited for Karen to storm in with her excuses. Waited for someone, anyone, to apologize. No one came. Instead, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. Their voices carried through the thin walls, sharp and angry. "She's lost her mind," Karen hissed. "Completely lost it. We need to do something." "What do you want me to do? She's my mother." "Your mother just threatened to throw us out on the street, with your children. Does that sound like a sane person to you?" "She's upset. She'll calm down by morning." "And if she doesn't, what then? We just pack up and leave. We have nowhere to go, David. Nowhere." There was a long pause. Then David's voice, quieter now. "Maybe we pushed too far with the bedroom thing." "Don't you dare!" Karen's voice turned to ice. "Don't you dare take her side. We did nothing wrong. We asked her to make a small sacrifice for the family, and she turned it into World War III. Karen, no, I'm done being the villain here. Your mother has been passive-aggressive since the day we moved in. Nothing I do is good enough. Nothing I say is right. And now she wants to kick us out over a dog." "It wasn't just about the dog. Then what was it about, Mom?" Silence. I pressed my hand against the cold wall, feeling the vibration of their anger. David had no answer. He didn't understand what they'd taken from me because he'd never bothered to look. I closed my eyes and thought about Robert. What would he say if he could see me now, lying on a cot in a laundry room, listening to my own son debate whether I deserved basic respect? He would be furious. He would have thrown them out months ago. But Robert was gone, and I had to fight this battle alone. The first rays of sunlight crept through the small window above the dryer. I hadn't slept a single minute, but I felt more awake than I had in months. Day 1. I got up, smoothed my clothes, and opened the door. Karen was waiting in the hallway. She stood with her arms crossed, blocking my path to the kitchen. Her face was composed, but her eyes were calculating. "Margaret, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about." "I think there is." She stepped closer. "I think you said some things last night that you didn't mean. Things said in the heat of the moment. We've all been under a lot of stress." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw her clearly for the first time. The concerned expression, the soft voice, the reasonable words, all of it was manipulation. Every single bit. I meant every word. Her mask slipped just for a second, then it was back. "Margaret, be reasonable. You can't just kick your own family out. What would people think? What would your friends say? What would Robert have wanted? Don't." My voice came out harder than I expected. "Don't you dare use my husband's name to manipulate me." "I'm not manipulating anyone. I'm trying to help you see. I see perfectly clearly. I see a woman who moved into my home, took over my kitchen, threw away my belongings, and put me in a laundry room so her dog could sleep on my bed. That's what I see." Karen's jaw tightened. "The dog has health issues." "So do I. But you didn't consider that, did you?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she had nothing to say. I walked past her shoulder, brushing against hers, and went to the kitchen. David was sitting at the table, head in his hands. He looked up when I entered, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months. Fear. "Mom, please, can we just talk about this? I've been trying to talk to you for 6 months, David. You never listened." "I'm listening now." "Are you? Or are you just scared because you might actually face consequences for the first time?" He flinched like I'd hit him. "That's not fair." "None of this has been fair, but that didn't seem to bother you when I was the one suffering." The kitchen fell silent. I could hear Karen's footsteps behind me, could feel her glaring at the back of my head, but I didn't turn around. 3 days, I said. "That hasn't changed." "Mom, we have nowhere to go. The kids—" "Should have thought about that before you treated me like garbage in my own home." I poured myself a cup of coffee, the expensive organic kind Karen had bought, the only kind left, and walked back toward the laundry room. "Margaret," Karen's voice stopped me at the door. "If you go through with this, there will be consequences." I turned slowly. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. You're 78 years old. You live alone. You've been displaying erratic behavior. A court might have some questions about your mental competency." My blood went cold. "What did you just say?" "I'm just pointing out the reality of the situation. An elderly woman alone making impulsive decisions threatening her own family." She shrugged. It doesn't look good. David's head snapped up. Karen, that's enough. Someone needs to say it. She's not thinking clearly. Maybe she needs help. I need help. I stepped toward her. You want to have me declared incompetent so you can stay in my house. That's your plan. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. My hands were shaking. I set down the coffee cup before I dropped it. All these months, I thought they were simply thoughtless, careless, self-absorbed. But this was calculated. This was deliberate. They had planned for this. How long? I asked quietly. Karen blinked. How long what? How long have you been planning to take my house? Nobody's trying to take your house, Margaret. You're being paranoid. Am I? I looked at David. Is she lying to me, or have you been lying too? David wouldn't meet my eyes. David. Mom, it's not like that. We talked about the future. What would happen when you couldn't live alone anymore? And you decided to speed that process along. No, God, no. Karen just thought, if we were already living here, it would make the transition easier when the time came. The transition. I tasted the word. It was bitter. You mean when you put me in a nursing home and take my house? I wouldn't be like that. What would it be like, David? Tell me. Paint me a picture of this wonderful future you've planned without bothering to ask me. He had no answer. Of course he didn't. I picked up my coffee and walked back to the laundry room, but before I closed the door, I turned one last time. I'm calling my lawyer today, and when I do, I'm going to tell her everything. The financial abuse, the emotional manipulation, the threats about my mental competency, all of it. Karen's face went white. You have no proof of any financial. I have bank statements. I have receipts. I have a paper trail that goes back 6 months. Robert taught me to keep records of everything, and I have. Every check I wrote you, every bill you left for me to pay, every grocery receipt with items I never asked for. I let that sink in. 3 days. And if you're not out by then, the next conversation we have will be in front of a judge. I closed the door. And for the first time, I felt like I was winning. 2 hours later, my phone rang. I scrambled to answer it, terrified they had somehow intercepted the call. But the number on the screen was familiar, Margaret Patterson's law office. Mrs. Hayes, this is Patricia, Ms. Patterson's assistant. She received your message and would like to meet with you today if possible. She has an opening at 2 o'clock. Today? Yes, absolutely. I'll be there. Do you need the address? I remember it. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hung up, heart pounding. 2 o'clock. I had to get out of this house without Karen stopping me. I pressed my ear against the door. Voices in the living room, David and Karen still arguing. Good. They were distracted. I grabbed my purse, my lockbox, and slipped out the back door. The taxi arrived in 15 minutes, the longest 15 minutes of my life. I stood at the corner, clutching my belongings, glancing back at the house every few seconds. Any moment, I expected Karen to come running out screaming at me to stop, but she didn't. I got into the taxi and gave the driver the address. As we pulled away, I looked back one last time. My house, my home of 40 years, looked exactly the same as it always had. White porch, faded shutters, the rose bushes I'd planted when David was a baby. But it wasn't the same. Nothing was the same anymore. The law office hadn't changed since my last visit 5 years ago when Robert and I updated our wills. The same brass plaque, the same creaky door, the same faint smell of old books and furniture polish. But I had changed. The woman who walked in today was not the same woman who had walked in with her husband all those years ago. That woman had been softer, safer, sure of her place in the world. This woman was harder, angrier, fighting for her survival. Ms. Patterson met me in the lobby. She was older than I remembered, gray hair now, instead of brown, deeper lines around her eyes, but her handshake was still firm, her gaze still sharp. Margaret, it's good to see you again, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Come, let's talk in my office. She led me down a narrow hallway and into a small room lined with law books. I sat across from her desk and placed the lockbox between us. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. I told her about David's phone call, about the move that was supposed to last a month or two, about the kitchen, the office, the den, the living room, about the furniture they threw away, about Robert's things boxed up and hidden in the attic. I told her about the money, the checks, the bills left on my counter, the grocery lists full of things I didn't want and couldn't afford. I told her about the bedroom, the dog, the cot in the laundry room. And I told her about Karen's threat. The words that still echoed in my head: a court might have some questions about your mental competency. When I finished, Ms. Patterson sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. "Margaret, I want you to listen to me very carefully." "I'm listening." "What you've described is a pattern of elder abuse, financial exploitation, emotional manipulation, isolation from your own home, and now threats of guardianship as a form of control. These are serious allegations." "I know. But here's what you need to understand." She leaned forward. "You have every legal right to remove them from your property. The house is solely in your name. There are no co-owners, no liens, no legal claims they can make against it." I felt something loosen in my chest. "So I can really do this?" "Absolutely. We'll draft formal eviction notices today. 30 days is standard, but given the circumstances, the threats, the documented abuse, we may be able to expedite the process." "What about Karen's threat? About having me declared incompetent?" Ms. Patterson's expression hardened. "That's not going to happen. You're sitting in front of me right now, clear-headed, articulate, with documented evidence of their behavior. Any judge who looked at this situation would see exactly what's going on: a family trying to intimidate an elderly woman out of her own home." "But what if they—" "Margaret." She reached across the desk and put her hand on mine. "They're counting on you being scared. That's how people like this operate. They make you feel powerless so you won't fight back. But you're not powerless. You own that house. You have rights. And I'm going to help you enforce them." I felt tears prick at my eyes. When was the last time someone had stood up for me? When was the last time someone had said, "I'm going to help you"? "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me yet. We have work to do." She pulled out a yellow legal pad and began taking notes. "First, we need to document everything. Every financial transaction, every instance of them taking your belongings without permission. Every conversation where they threatened or belittled you. Can you do that?" "I can try." "Good. Second, we need witnesses. Have you told anyone else about what's been happening? A friend, a neighbor, your sister?" I thought about Betty, our weekly phone calls, how I'd always minimized the problems, not wanting to worry her. "I've mentioned some things to my sister, but I never told her how bad it really was." "Tell her now, everything, and ask her to write down what she remembers from your conversations, dates, details, anything that shows a pattern of behavior." "Okay." Third, and this is important, do not be alone with Karen if you can help it. If she makes any more threats, try to record them. Virginia is a one-party consent state, which means you can legally record a conversation you're a part of without telling the other person. I nodded, filing that information away. "Finally, I want you to think about where you'll stay during this process. Living in the same house with them while the eviction plays out could be difficult." "I'm not leaving my home. Not again. Not ever." Ms. Patterson studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, then we do this the hard way." She began drafting the eviction notices while I sat there, hands clasped in my lap, watching my future take shape on her legal pad. When she finished, she slid the papers across to me. "Read them carefully. Sign at the bottom when you're ready." I picked up the first notice. It was addressed to David, my son, the child I had raised, loved, sacrificed for. My hand trembled. "Margaret, I never thought I'd be doing this." My voice cracked. "He's my son. He's all I have left." "I know." Her voice was gentle. "But sometimes the people we love hurt us the most. And sometimes love means setting boundaries, even painful ones." I read the words on the page. Legal language, cold, precise, devastating. This document serves as formal notice that you are required to vacate the property at address within 30 days of receipt. I picked up the pen. "Robert would have done this months ago," I said quietly. Then do it for Robert and for yourself. I signed my name, Margaret Ann Hayes, the same signature I'd used on my marriage certificate, on David's birth certificate, on Robert's death certificate, now on an eviction notice for my own son. I signed the second notice, Karen's, without hesitation. And then it was done. Ms. Patterson gathered the papers. I'll have these delivered by certified mail tomorrow morning. They'll have 30 days from receipt to vacate. What if they don't leave? Then we go to court. And based on everything you've told me, I'm confident a judge will rule in your favor. I stood up, legs unsteady. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. Stay strong. That's all the payment I need. I walked out of that office into the afternoon sunshine, the weight of the eviction notices heavy in my mind, but light on my shoulders. I was fighting back. For the first time in 6 months, I was finally fighting back. The taxi dropped me off at the corner just like before. I walked the half block to my house, clutching my purse, steeling myself for whatever was waiting inside. Karen was standing on the porch. She'd been watching for me. I could tell by the way she straightened when she saw me, the way her hands gripped the railing. Where were you? Out. Out where you were gone for 3 hours. David was worried sick. Was he? Or were you? She came down the steps, blocking my path to the door. Margaret, I think we need to have a conversation about boundaries. I almost laughed. Almost. Boundaries. You want to talk to me about boundaries? You can't just disappear without telling anyone. What if something had happened to you? What if you'd fallen? What if you couldn't keep track of what I was doing? Her mouth snapped shut. I know what you're trying to do, Karen. The concern, the worry, it's all an act. You don't care if I fall. You care if I fight. That's not true. Then why did you threaten to have me declared incompetent this morning? She took a step back. I didn't threaten anything. I was just pointing out, save it. I've heard enough of your excuses to last a lifetime. I pushed past her up the steps through the front door. David was standing in the living room, phone in hand, face pale. Mom, where were you? I called you 6 times. I had my phone on silent. But where? I went to see a lawyer. The words landed like a bomb. David's face went from pale to white. Karen appeared in the doorway behind me, and I heard her sharp intake of breath. You did what? She said. I went to see a lawyer. The eviction notices will be delivered tomorrow. You can't be serious. Karen's voice rose. You actually went through with this. I told you I would. I thought you were bluffing. I don't bluff. David sank onto the couch, the gray couch Karen had bought, the one that replaced my floral sofa. He put his head in his hands. Mom, please. There has to be another way. There isn't. We'll change. We'll do better. You'll what, David? Give me back my bedroom. Put my furniture back where it was. Treat me like a human being instead of an inconvenience. He looked up, eyes wet. Yes, all of that. Whatever you want. It's too late. It's not too late. It can't be too late. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. And for a moment, I saw the boy he used to be. The one who brought me dandelions from the backyard. The one who cried when our cat died and made me promise to always be there. But that boy was gone. He'd been gone for a long time. You had 6 months to treat me with respect, I said quietly. 6 months to see what was happening in front of your eyes. You chose not to. Now you have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Mom, this conversation is over. I walked to the laundry room, my prison cell, my exile, and closed the door. Behind me, I heard Karen's voice, sharp and furious. This is your fault. You should have controlled her better. Controlled her? She's my mother, not a... Your mother is ruining our lives, and you're just going to let her... Their argument faded as I pressed my back against the door and slid down to the floor. I had done it. I had actually done it. And now there was no going back. The next morning, I woke to the sound of pounding on my door. Margaret, open this door right now. Karen's voice, furious, panicked. I got up slowly, took a breath, and opened the door. She was holding an envelope. The certified letter. The eviction notice. You actually did it. Her voice shook. You actually served us with eviction papers. I told you I would. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. You can't do this to us. I already have. David appeared behind her, holding his own envelope. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Mom, please, can we just sit down and talk about this like adults? I've tried talking. You didn't listen. I'm listening now. Too late. Karen thrust the envelope toward my face. Do you know what you've done? Do you have any idea our names will be on an eviction record? We'll never be able to rent anywhere decent again. That sounds like your problem. Our problem. She laughed high and sharp. We are your family, your blood, your only son and your grandchildren, and you're treating us like criminals. You treated me like furniture. At least criminals get a trial. Karen's face twisted into something ugly. Fine. You want war? You've got it. She turned and stormed down the hallway. A moment later, I heard her on the phone, voice low and intense. David stood frozen, looking at me like I was a stranger. Mom, you've changed. No, David. I've remembered who I am. This isn't you. The mom I know would never... The mom you know doesn't exist anymore. You killed her. One small cruelty at a time. His eyes filled with tears. I never meant to hurt you. I believe you. But David, that's almost worse. You hurt me without even noticing. You watched Karen tear apart my life, and you said nothing. You let her put me in a laundry room, and you told yourself it was fine. That's not thoughtlessness. That's cowardice. He flinched. I was trying to keep the peace. No, you were trying to avoid conflict. There's a difference. Keeping the peace would have meant standing up for me. What you did was let me drown so you wouldn't have to swim. He had no response to that. I stepped back and started to close the door. 29 days, I said. Use them wisely. The door clicked shut. And on the other side, I heard my son crying. I wish I could say it didn't hurt. I wish I could say I felt vindicated, powerful, righteous. But the truth is, I went back to my cot and cried too, because fighting back doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It just means you do it anyway. Day 3 brought an unexpected visitor. I was sitting in the kitchen drinking my morning coffee when the doorbell rang. Before I could get up, Karen rushed past me. I'll get it. She opened the door and I heard a familiar voice. Karen, what a surprise. Is Margaret home? Betty, my sister. I stood up so fast I knocked over my coffee cup. Betty. She appeared in the doorway, pushing past Karen, eyes scanning the room until they found me. Maggie, oh thank God. She crossed the room and pulled me into a hug so tight I couldn't breathe. I called you 6 times yesterday, she said into my hair. When you didn't answer, I got on a plane this morning. What is going on here? I started to cry. Betty, don't. She pulled back, holding me at arm's length, examining my face. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Just tell me one thing. Are you okay? I looked at my big sister, 73 years old, gray-haired arthritis in both knees, who had gotten on a plane because I didn't answer my phone. I'm better now, I said. She nodded once, then turned to face Karen. We need to talk. Karen's smile flickered. Betty, I don't care what you think. I've just spent 3 hours on a plane because my sister was crying when I called her last week. I've spent 6 months listening to her make excuses for you, and I've spent the last 48 hours imagining the worst. She stepped closer to Karen, and even though Betty was 6 inches shorter, Karen took a step back. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your things. You're going to leave my sister's house. And you're going to do it quietly without any more of your manipulative nonsense. Do you understand? Karen's face hardened. This is none of your business. My sister is my business. This family is my business. And you, Betty jabbed a finger at Karen's chest, are done. I had never loved my sister more than I did in that moment. Karen looked at David, who had appeared in the hallway. Are you going to let her talk to me like that? David looked at Betty, then at me, then back at Karen. Maybe we should go, he said quietly. What? Maybe we should just go. Karen stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You can't be serious. Look around, Karen. Look at what we've done. Look at what we've become. His voice cracked. I don't recognize us anymore, and I definitely don't recognize my mother. We broke something here, something that might never be fixed. David, I'm done fighting. He looked at me, and for the first time in months, I saw my son, not the stranger he'd become. My son. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. He walked past Karen, past Betty, and out the front door. Karen stood alone in the middle of my living room, surrounded by her gray furniture, her expensive appliances, her carefully curated life. And for the first time, she looked scared. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is, I replied. Betty put her arm around me. Come on, Maggie. Let's go get your bedroom back. We walked down the hallway together, leaving Karen standing in the wreckage of her own making. And I didn't look back. Betty helped me move my things back into the bedroom that same afternoon. We worked in silence at first, neither of us quite knowing what to say. She carried my clothes from the laundry room while I stripped the dog bed off my mattress and dragged it into the hallway. Bella watched from the corner tail tucked between her legs, confused by the sudden shift in her world. Poor thing doesn't understand, Betty said, pausing to scratch behind the dog's ears. None of this is her fault. I know. I never blamed her. I know you didn't. Betty straightened up and looked at me. Maggie, why didn't you tell me how bad it had gotten? I sat down on the edge of my bed finally mine again, and felt the familiar give of the mattress beneath me. Robert's side was still there, still empty, still waiting. I was ashamed, I admitted. I kept thinking I was overreacting, that I was being too sensitive. Karen has this way of making everything seem reasonable. There's nothing reasonable about putting your mother-in-law in a laundry room. I know that now. Betty sat beside me and took my hand. Her fingers were cold from the March air, but her grip was strong. Robert would have thrown them out the first week. That's what I keep telling myself. He would have. You know he would have. Remember when David brought home that girlfriend in college, the one who called me fat at Thanksgiving? I almost smiled. Robert made David drive her back to campus that same night. In the snow, at 11 o'clock, because nobody disrespects family. Betty squeezed my hand. You're not disrespecting David by setting boundaries, Maggie. You're teaching him what Robert would have taught him a long time ago. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel righteous and strong and certain, but all I felt was tired. They're still here, I said quietly. Karen and the kids. David left, but she's still in the guest room. She'll leave. They all will. What if she doesn't? Betty's jaw set in that stubborn way I remembered from our childhood, the same look she got before she punched Tommy Morrison for pulling my pigtails in 3rd grade. Then we make her. Day 7. Karen had not spoken to me since Betty arrived. She moved through the house like a ghost appearing and disappearing without warning, always on her phone, always whispering. I didn't trust her silence. Silence from Karen was more dangerous than screaming. She's planning something, I told Betty over breakfast. I can feel it. Let her plan. The law is on your side. The law doesn't protect against everything. Betty looked up from her coffee. What do you mean? Before I could answer, the front door opened. David walked in. He looked terrible. Unshaven dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. He stood in the entryway, hands shoved in his pockets, looking at me like a child who'd been caught stealing. Mom, can we talk? Betty started to stand. I'll give you some privacy. No. I reached for her arm. Stay, please. David's face flickered with hurt, but he nodded slowly. Fair enough. He pulled out a chair and sat across from us. For a long moment, nobody spoke. I've been staying at a motel, he finally said. The one on Route 9, $53 a night. Okay. I've had time to think. A lot of time. He rubbed his face with both hands. I keep going over everything in my head. Every decision we made. Every time we asked you to give up something. And I keep trying to figure out when it went wrong. It went wrong the first time you didn't say no to Karen. He flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? Every time she wanted something you gave in. Every time she pushed a boundary you let her. And every time I tried to speak up, you told me to keep the peace. I was trying to hold my family together. You were trying to avoid conflict. Those aren't the same thing, David. He stared at the table. His coffee sat untouched, growing cold. She's not a bad person, he said quietly. Karen, she's not evil. She grew up poor, really poor. Her mother lost their house when Karen was 12. They lived in a car for 6 months. She's terrified of that happening again. So she decided to take my house instead. He trailed off, frustrated. It wasn't supposed to be like this. We were just going to stay for a few months. Get back on our feet. But then the job search took longer than expected, and Karen started talking about how much space there was here and how it didn't make sense for you to have this big house all alone. And you agreed with her. I didn't disagree. That's the same thing. He looked up at me, eyes wet. I know it is. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. I wanted to forgive him. Part of me, the mother part, the part that would always see him as that little boy with the scraped knees, wanted to take him in my arms and tell him everything would be okay. But I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Sorry doesn't give me back the last 6 months. Sorry doesn't undo the humiliation. Sorry doesn't fix the fact that my own son chose his wife's comfort over his mother's dignity. What do you want me to do? Tell me. Anything. I want you to leave. I want you to take Karen and the kids and find your own place. And I want you to really think about the kind of man you've become. He nodded slowly, accepting the words like blows. And after that, we'll see. He stood up, chair scraping against the floor. I'll talk to Karen. We'll be out before the 30 days. Good. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Mom, yes, I love you. I know that doesn't mean much right now, but I do. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his words. I love you too, David. That's why this hurts so much. He left without another word. Betty put her arm around me as the door closed. That was hard, she said. The hardest thing I've ever done. I know, but you did it. I leaned into my sister's shoulder and let myself breathe. One battle down, but I had a feeling the war was far from over. Day 12. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard Karen's voice from the living room. She was on the phone, speaking loudly enough that I could hear every word. Yes, I'm concerned about her mental state. She's been making erratic decisions, paranoid accusations. She threatened to throw her own grandchildren out on the street. I froze, sandwich forgotten. I think she may be suffering from early dementia, or possibly some kind of psychotic break. She's 78 years old. She lives alone. She's been displaying signs of confusion and aggression. My blood ran cold. She was doing it. She was actually doing it. I walked into the living room. Karen saw me and didn't even flinch. She kept talking, eyes locked on mine, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Yes, I'd like to request a welfare check, and possibly an evaluation. I'm worried she might be a danger to herself. I grabbed the phone from her hand. Who is this? A confused voice on the other end. Ma'am, this is the Fairfax County Adult Protective Services. We received a report. My name is Margaret Hayes. I am the homeowner. I am not suffering from dementia. I am not a danger to anyone. The woman who called you is my daughter-in-law, whom I am in the process of legally evicting from my home. Silence. Ma'am, we're required to follow up on all reports. Then follow up. Send someone. I'll show them my lawyer's paperwork. I'll show them my bank statements. I'll show them the documentation of financial exploitation that my daughter-in-law has been perpetrating against me for 6 months. Karen's smile disappeared. Ma'am, I'm going to transfer you to my supervisor. Please do. And while you're at it, please note that filing false reports with Adult Protective Services is a crime. I expect you'll be looking into that as well. I hung up and turned to Karen. Did you really think that would work? Her face was white. I was trying to help you. You were trying to have me declared incompetent so you could take my house. That's not true. It's exactly true. And now I have it on record. A phone call to APS documented, timestamped, recorded in their system. I stepped closer to her. You just made my case stronger, Karen. Thank you. She backed away, hands raised. "You're crazy. You're absolutely crazy." "No, I'm clear. For the first time in 6 months, I am absolutely clear." I walked to the phone and dialed Miss Patterson's office. "Patricia, it's Margaret Hayes. I need to document something immediately. My daughter-in-law just called Adult Protective Services and filed a false report about my mental competency." Karen stood frozen in the middle of the room, listening. "Yes, I have witnesses. My sister Betty is staying with me. She heard the whole thing." Karen's face crumpled. "You want to play dirty?" I said after I hung up. "Fine, let's play dirty. But remember, I've been playing nice for 6 months. You have no idea what I'm capable of when I stop." I walked out of the room, leaving her standing alone with her failed schemes. And for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. Good. Day 15. Betty and I were sorting through boxes in the attic when I found them. Robert's things. The boxes I'd packed up when David took over the office. His books, his files, his certificates, and something else. Something I hadn't put there. A manila folder hidden at the bottom of a box filled with papers I didn't recognize. "What's this?" Betty asked, looking over my shoulder. I opened the folder and felt my heart stop. Bank statements, account numbers, withdrawal records, all in my name, all showing transfers I had never authorized. "Oh my God," I whispered. What? What is it?" I held up the papers with shaking hands. "They've been stealing from me. Not just the grocery money, not just the bills I paid. They've been transferring money out of my savings account." Betty grabbed the papers and scanned them, her face going pale. "Maggie, this is thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. $43,216. I had counted it 3 times, hoping I was wrong. My retirement savings, Robert's life insurance, gone. How did they get access? I don't know. I never gave them. I stopped a memory surfacing. The first month. David asked me to sign some papers for his unemployment benefits. I didn't read them carefully. I trusted him. You think he forged your signature on banking documents? I think Karen did. David doesn't have the nerve. Betty pulled out her phone. "We need to call the police." "No, not yet. Maggie, I need to think. I need to be strategic about this. There's nothing to think about. This is theft. Grand theft. They belong in prison." I looked at my sister, seeing the fury in her eyes that matched the fury in my heart. "If I call the police, David goes to prison. My son, the father of my grandchildren." "He stole from you." "I know." "He let his wife put you in a laundry room." "I know." "He stood by while she tried to have you declared incompetent." "I know, Betty. I know all of it." I sat down on a dusty box, the papers clutched in my lap. "But he's still my son, and I need to look him in the eye and give him one chance to make this right." Betty stared at me. "You're a better person than I am, Margaret Hayes." "No, I'm just a mother." Day 16. I called David and asked him to come to the house, alone. He arrived at noon, looking worse than the last time I'd seen him. The motel was taking its toll. So was his conscience, I hoped. "Mom, what's going on?" I led him to the kitchen table and placed the manila folder in front of him. "Open it." He hesitated, then flipped it open. I watched his face as he looked at the papers. First confusion, then recognition, then horror. "Mom, I didn't—" $43,000, David. My retirement savings, Robert's life insurance money, gone. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know it was this much. But you knew it was something. He couldn't meet my eyes. Karen said she was just borrowing a little to tide us over. She said she'd pay it back. She forged my signature on banking documents. That's a felony. I know. You knew she was committing a crime and you said nothing. His silence was answer enough. I sat down across from him, feeling older than my 78 years. "I have 2 choices, David. I can take these documents to the police and press charges. Karen goes to prison. Possibly you too as an accessory. Your children grow up visiting their parents behind bars. He looked like he was going to be sick. Or you pay me back. Every cent. I don't care how long it takes. You get a job, 2 jobs, 3 jobs if you have to. You work until that money is back in my account. And Karen never comes near me again. What about the kids? The kids can visit, with supervision. But Karen is done. If I ever see her face again, I'm going straight to the police. He nodded slowly, mechanically. Okay. That's it. Just okay. What else can I say? You're right. About everything. We stole from you. We lied to you. We treated you like... He choked on the words. Like you didn't matter. I do matter, David. I've always mattered. You just forgot. He put his head in his hands and sobbed. Part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort him. But I stayed where I was. Some lessons can only be learned through pain. The eviction deadline is in 14 days, I said. I want you out in 7. He looked up, face wet. 7 days. After everything you've done, you're lucky I'm giving you 7 hours. He nodded, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. I'll tell Karen. You do that. He stood up and walked to the door, then stopped. Mom, for what it's worth, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you. We'll see. He left. Betty came down from upstairs where she'd been listening. You let him off easy. Did I? No prison, no police, just a payment plan. I looked at the folder still sitting on the table. He's my son, Betty. He's flawed and weak and he made terrible choices, but he's still my son. And Karen is dead to me. Betty nodded slowly. Fair enough. Day 19. Karen found me in the garden. I was planting new flowers, the ones she'd let Bella destroy when they first arrived. It felt good to have my hands in the dirt again. Grounding. Real. Margaret. I didn't look up. David told me about your deal. Good. You really expect us to pay back $43,000? I expect you to pay back every cent you stole from me. We didn't steal anything. We borrowed. I finally looked at her. She was standing at the edge of the garden arms, cross-chin lifted in that defiant way that used to intimidate me. It didn't anymore. You forged my signature on banking documents. That's not borrowing. That's theft. That's fraud. That's a felony. I'll deny it. You can try. But I have the documents. I have the withdrawal records. I have your handwriting on forms that I never signed. I stood up, brushing dirt off my knees. And I have a very good lawyer who is already building a case. Karen's confidence wavered. You wouldn't send me to prison. Think about the kids. I am thinking about the kids. I'm thinking about what kind of example you're setting for them. I'm thinking about what they'll learn from watching their mother steal from their grandmother. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Karen. But fairness isn't the point anymore. The point is consequences. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I could make things very difficult for you, Margaret. Is that another threat? It's a promise. I met her eyes without blinking. Let me tell you something about promises, Karen. I promised Robert I would take care of this house. I promised myself I would never let anyone push me out of my own life. And I'm promising you right now that if you threaten me one more time, I will pick up the phone and have you arrested before you can pack a single bag. She stared at me. You've changed. No, I've remembered who I am. I turned back to my flowers. You have 4 days to get out of my house. I suggest you use them wisely. She stood there for a long moment, silent and fuming. Then she walked away, and I kept planting. Day 22. They left at sunrise. I watched from the kitchen window as David loaded the last of their boxes into a rental truck. Karen sat in the passenger seat, face turned away, refusing to look at the house. The children climbed into the back of their car, Tyler still glued to his phone, Emma waving at me through the window. I waved back. David approached the house one last time. I met him at the door. Mom. David. He handed me an envelope. First payment. It's not much, just $500. But I got a job. Start Monday. I took the envelope without opening it. What kind of job? Construction. A buddy of mine runs a crew. It's hard work, but it pays. Good. He shifted from foot to foot, looking like the awkward teenager I remembered from decades ago. Can I hug you? I hesitated. then nodded. He wrapped his arms around me, and for one moment, he was my little boy again. The one who brought me dandelions. The one who cried at his father's funeral. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." "I know." He pulled back, eyes wet. "I'll call you, every week, and I'll send a payment every month until it's all paid back." "Okay. And maybe someday, maybe we can try again." I looked at him, this man I had raised, loved, and lost. Maybe someday. He walked back to the truck, got in, and started the engine. I stood on the porch and watched them drive away. The house was quiet. My house, my home, mine again. Betty came up behind me and put her hand on my shoulder. "How do you feel?" I thought about the question. Sad, relieved, angry, proud. All at once. She squeezed my shoulder. "Robert would be proud too, you know." I looked at the empty driveway, the bare flower beds, the silence that had once felt like loneliness and now felt like peace. I know he would. I turned and walked back inside. There was a lot to do, a house to reclaim, a life to rebuild, and for the first time in 6 months, I was ready. The first week after they left was the hardest. Betty stayed 3 more days helping me clean, reorganize, and reclaim every inch of my home. We scrubbed Karen's fingerprints off the kitchen cabinets. We moved the gray furniture to the garage scheduled for donation. We hung Robert's photographs back on the walls where they belonged. But then Betty had to go home. Her husband Frank was recovering from knee surgery, and she'd already been gone longer than planned. "I don't want to leave you alone," she said, standing by her suitcase at the front door. "I'll be fine." "Will you, Maggie? You just went through hell." I pulled her into a hug. "I survived, didn't I? And I'll keep surviving. That's what Hayes women do." She laughed through tears. "Dad used to say that." Because it was true then, and it's true now. I watched her taxi pull away, waving until it disappeared around the corner. Then I turned and walked back into my empty house. Empty, quiet, mine. I should have felt peaceful. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt the silence pressing against me like a weight. Day 25. The phone rang at 7 in the morning. I was still in bed, wrapped in Robert's old bathrobe, staring at the ceiling. Sleep had become difficult since they left. Too many thoughts, too many memories. I reached for the phone without checking the number. "Hello." "Mrs. Hayes, this is Detective Morrison from the Fairfax County Police Department." My heart stopped. "Detective?" "Ma'am, I'm calling about a report that was filed yesterday. Your daughter-in-law, Karen Hayes, came into the station claiming you've been harassing her family." I sat up so fast, my head spun. "Harassing? I haven't spoken to her since she left my house 4 days ago. She says you've been sending threatening messages, calling her phone repeatedly, showing up at their new apartment." "That's a lie. That's an absolute lie." "Ma'am, I'm not making any accusations. I'm just following up on the report. Can you tell me where you were yesterday between 2 and 4 in the afternoon?" "I was here, at home. I haven't left my house in 3 days." "Can anyone verify that?" I thought about the empty rooms, the silent hallways, the solitude I'd been drowning in. "No, I live alone." A pause. "Mrs. Hayes, I'd like to come by and speak with you in person. Would this afternoon work?" "Of course. I have nothing to hide. I'll be there around 2 o'clock. I hung up and sat in the quiet, my mind racing. Karen was fighting back. I'd known she would. I'd just hoped she'd wait longer than 4 days. I called Ms. Patterson immediately. "Margaret, what's wrong?" I told her about the detective's call, about Karen's false accusations. "This is retaliation," Ms. Patterson said, clear as day. "She's trying to establish a pattern of you being the aggressor so she can undermine your credibility." "What do I do?" "Document everything. Get your phone records showing you haven't made any calls to her. Check your credit card statements to prove you haven't left the house. And when the detective comes, be calm, cooperative, and honest. And if he doesn't believe me, then we fight. But Margaret, the truth is on your side. Don't forget that." I spent the next 4 hours gathering evidence, phone records, bank statements, the receipt from the grocery delivery I'd ordered 2 days ago. Anything that proved I hadn't left my house. Detective Morrison arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. He was younger than I expected, mid-30s with a kind face and tired eyes. "Mrs. Hayes, thank you for seeing me." "Come in, Detective. Can I get you some coffee?" "No, thank you. This shouldn't take long." We sat in the living room, me on the couch, him in the armchair that used to be Robert's. "I've looked into your daughter-in-law's claims," he said. "Frankly, there are some inconsistencies. Such as, she says you showed up at her apartment yesterday at 3 o'clock, but the building's security footage shows no one matching your description entering or leaving during that time." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "She also claims you've been calling her phone dozens of times a day. But when I asked to see her call log, she said her phone was broken and she'd had to get a new one." "How convenient." Detective Morrison almost smiled. "That's what I thought." He pulled out a notepad and flipped through some pages. "Mrs. Hayes, I've also done some background research. I know about the eviction. I know about the Adult Protective Services report she filed. And I know about the financial situation." My stomach tightened. "You do—" "Your lawyer sent over some documents this morning. Very thorough." He looked up at me. "Ma'am, off the record, I think your daughter-in-law is trying to build a harassment case against you to deflect from her own legal exposure. That's exactly what she's doing." I figured as much. "I'm going to close this report as unfounded, but I want to warn you if she keeps this up, it could escalate." "What do you mean?" "People like her don't give up easily. When one tactic fails, they try another. You need to be prepared for that." I nodded slowly. "I will be." He stood and extended his hand. "Take care of yourself, Mrs. Hayes, and call me if anything else happens." "Thank you, Detective, for believing me. The evidence believed you, I just followed it." After he left, I sat alone in the quiet house and wondered what Karen would try next. I didn't have to wait long to find out. Day 28, Emma called me, my granddaughter, 9 years old, the only one in that family who had ever looked at me with genuine affection. I answered immediately. "Emma, sweetheart, is everything okay?" "Grandma?" Her voice was small, scared. "Mommy and Daddy are fighting again." My heart clenched. "What are they fighting about?" "I don't know. Mommy keeps crying and saying everything is ruined. Daddy says it's her fault. And Tyler won't come out of his room." I gripped the phone tighter. "Where are you right now, honey?" "In the closet. So they can't hear me." A 9-year-old hiding in a closet while her parents screamed at each other because of what I'd done, because I'd finally stood up for myself. "Emma, listen to me. You're going to be okay. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault." "I miss you, Grandma. I miss your house." "I miss you too, sweetheart." "Can I come visit, please?" I closed my eyes. Karen would never allow it. Not now. Not after everything. "We'll figure something out. I promise." "Mommy says you're mean. She says you kicked us out because you don't love us anymore." And the words hit me like a physical blow. "That's not true, Emma. I love you very much. I love your brother. I even love your daddy. But sometimes adults make choices that hurt each other, and we have to find new ways to be together." "Like divorce?" "Something like that, but different." A door slammed in the background. Emma gasped. "I have to go. Mommy's coming." "Emma, wait." The line went dead. I sat there, phone pressed against my chest, tears streaming down my face. What had I done? I'd saved myself, yes. I'd reclaimed my home. But at what cost? My grandchildren were caught in the middle of a war they didn't understand. Emma was hiding in closets. Tyler was isolating himself. And David and Karen were tearing each other apart. Was any of this worth it? I thought about calling David, warning him about what Emma had told me. But what good would that do? He'd think I was interfering. Karen would use it as evidence that I was stalking them. I was trapped, powerless to help the people I loved most. The silence of the house pressed against me again, heavier than before, day 31. The first payment arrived. David had promised $500 a month. The envelope contained a check for $600. No note, no letter, just the check. I stared at it for a long time. $600 wouldn't restore my trust. It wouldn't heal the wounds. It wouldn't bring back the 6 months I'd lost or the relationship I'd had with my son before Karen poisoned it. But it was something, a first step, a sign that maybe somewhere inside him, the David I remembered still existed. I deposited the check and tried to feel hopeful. It didn't work. Day 35. I was in the garden planting new roses when a car pulled into the driveway. I didn't recognize the vehicle. A black sedan, rental plates, tinted windows. The driver's door opened and Karen stepped out. Every muscle in my body tensed. "What are you doing here?" She walked toward me slowly, hands raised as if approaching a wild animal. "I just want to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Please, Margaret, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." I stood up, trowel still in my hand. 5 minutes. Talk. She stopped a few feet away, close enough to see the dark circles under her eyes, the new lines around her mouth. "I'm leaving David." I blinked. Whatever I'd expected her to say, that wasn't it. "What?" "I'm filing for divorce. Next week." I didn't respond. I couldn't. "He blames me for everything," she continued. "Says I pushed too hard, says I ruined his relationship with his mother. He's probably right. You did push too hard, and you did ruin things." She nodded slowly. I know I did." "Then why are you here?" "Because I need you to know something." She took a breath. "The money, the $43,000. David knew. He knew from the beginning." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? He was there when I opened the account. He helped me forge the signatures. It wasn't just me, Margaret. It was both of us." I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. "You're lying." "I'm not. I have the emails. I have the bank records. I have proof." "Why are you telling me this?" Her face hardened. "Because if I'm going down, I'm taking him with me. He doesn't get to play the victim while I take all the blame." I stared at her, this woman I'd welcomed into my home, fed, sheltered, trusted. "You're doing this out of spite." "I'm doing this because it's the truth. You deserve to know who your son really is." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "Everything's in here. Read it or don't. But don't say I didn't warn you." She dropped the folder on the ground between us and walked back to her car. I watched her drive away, the folder sitting in the dirt like a bomb waiting to explode. For 10 minutes, I didn't move. Then I picked it up, went inside, and opened it. She wasn't lying. The emails were all there. David's words clear as day. "Move another $5,000 this week. She won't notice. Make sure you use her maiden name on the forms. She signs everything, never reads anything. If she asks about the account balance, tell her it's a bank error. She'll believe you. She believes everything. She believes everything. My own son, writing about me like I was a mark to be scammed, a fool to be manipulated." I sat at the kitchen table and read every document in the folder, every email, every text message, every bank transfer he'd approved. By the time I finished, I was shaking, not with sadness, not with grief, with rage. Day 36. I called David. "Mom, is everything okay? I need you to come over, now." "Is something wrong?" "Just come." He arrived an hour later looking worried. "Mom, what's going on? You sounded upset on the phone." I handed him the folder. "Explain this." He opened it and I watched the color drain from his face. "Where did you get this?" "Karen. She came by yesterday. She gave you this. She's leaving you, David. She wanted me to know the truth before she filed for divorce." He looked up at me, eyes wide. "Mom, I can explain. Can you explain these emails? Can you explain why my own son referred to me as someone who believes everything? Can you explain why you helped her steal $43,000 from your mother?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Tell me, David. Make me understand." He sank into a chair, the folder clutched in his hands. "We were desperate, Mom. We were drowning in debt. The kids needed things. Karen had a plan. Karen had a plan to rob me, and you went along with it. I thought we'd pay it back. I really did. I never meant for it to go this far." "But it did go this far. You let her take over my house. You let her put me in a laundry room. You let her call Adult Protective Services and try to have me declared incompetent, and the whole time you were helping her empty my bank account. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough anymore, David. Sorry doesn't mean anything. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. What do you want me to do? I thought about the question. What did I want? Justice, revenge, acknowledgement of the pain he'd caused. I want you to leave. Mom, I want you to leave, and I don't want to see you again until you can look me in the eye and tell me the truth about everything. Not the version that makes you look like a victim. Not the story that blames Karen for all of it. The truth. I've told you the truth. No, you've told me what you thought I wanted to hear. That's not the same thing. I stood up and walked to the door. Goodbye, David. He sat there for a long moment, clutching the folder. Then he stood slowly and walked toward me. I never wanted to hurt you, Mom. But you did. Every day for 6 months you hurt me. And the worst part, you made me hurt myself. You made me doubt my own sanity, my own worth, my own right to exist in my own home. I opened the door. That's not something sorry can fix. He walked out without another word. I closed the door behind him and leaned against it, breathing hard. The rage was fading now, replaced by something colder. Something that felt like acceptance. My son was not the man I thought he was. Maybe he never had been. And I had to find a way to live with that. Day 40. Betty called. How are you holding up? I told her everything. Karen's visit, the documents, the confrontation with David. Oh, Maggie, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I needed to know the truth. What are you going to do now? I looked around my empty house, the walls that had sheltered my family for 40 years, the rooms where I'd lived, loved, lost, and somehow survived. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to plant my garden and drink my coffee and talk to Robert's photograph every night before bed. And I'm going to stop waiting for other people to make me happy. That sounds healthy. It sounds lonely. Those aren't mutually exclusive. I almost laughed. When did you get so wise? When I watched my baby sister stand up to an entire family trying to tear her down. That tends to put things in perspective. I felt tears prick at my eyes. I love you, Betty. I love you too, Maggie. And I'm proud of you. So proud. After we hung up, I sat in the silence and let her words sink in. Proud. Someone was proud of me. Maybe that was enough. Day 45. Emma showed up at my door. She was alone, backpack clutched to her chest, face streaked with tears. Grandma! I pulled her inside immediately. Emma, sweetheart, what happened? How did you get here? I took the bus. I remembered the route from when we used to come visit. Does your mother know you're here? She shook her head. She's going to be worried sick. We need to call her. No. Emma grabbed my arm. Please don't. Please, I don't want to go back. I knelt down to her level. What's wrong, honey? Tell me what happened. Mommy and Daddy signed papers. They're getting divorced for real. Mommy says we're moving to California with her sister. She says I'll never see you again. My heart shattered. Emma, I don't want to go to California. I don't want to leave. This is my home. You're my grandma. I pulled her into my arms and held her while she sobbed. I know, sweetheart. I know. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Is Emma with you? She's missing. Karen's losing her mind. I typed back. She's here. She's safe, but we need to talk. His response came immediately. On my way. 20 minutes later, David burst through the door, Karen right behind him. Emma. Oh my God, Emma! Karen ran to her daughter, pulling her out of my arms. What were you thinking? Do you know how scared I was? I don't want to move to California. That's not your decision to make. She's 9 years old, I said quietly. Maybe it should be. Karen spun toward me, eyes blazing. This is your fault. You've turned her against me. I haven't done anything. She came here on her own. Because you manipulated her. I haven't seen her in weeks. How could I possibly— Enough! David stepped between us. Both of you just— Enough. The room fell silent. Emma was crying, Karen was shaking with fury, and I was standing in my own living room watching my family tear itself apart. "We need to figure this out," David said. "Like adults, for Emma's sake." Karen laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about Emma's sake? You're the one who destroyed this family." "I destroyed it. You're the one who—" "Stop it!" Emma screamed. "Stop fighting. I hate you. I hate both of you." She ran down the hallway toward my bedroom and slammed the door. The three of us stood in the wreckage of her words. "She doesn't mean that," Karen said, but her voice was hollow. "No," I said quietly. "She means every word." I looked at my son and his soon-to-be ex-wife. "You have broken that child, both of you, with your schemes and your lies and your endless war against each other." "Mom, I'm not finished." I stepped closer to Karen. "You're not taking her to California, not like this, not while she's begging to stay. You have no right. I have every right. I'm her grandmother, and I will fight you with everything I have." Karen's face went white. "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." I walked down the hallway and knocked gently on my bedroom door. "Emma, can I come in?" A muffled, "Yes." I opened the door. Emma was curled up on my bed, Robert's pillow clutched to her chest. I sat beside her and stroked her hair. "Listen to me, sweetheart. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know where you'll end up or who you'll live with. But I need you to know something." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "No matter what happens, I will always be your grandmother. I will always love you, and you will always have a place in my heart. Promise. I promise." She threw her arms around me, and I held her tight. Behind me, I heard David and Karen still arguing in the living room. Their voices rose and fell sharp edges and broken pieces. But in that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was this child in my arms and the promise I'd made her. I would fight for her, no matter what it cost. Day 50. The custody battle began. Ms. Patterson referred me to a family law attorney who specialized in grandparents' rights. Her name was Dr. Helen Morris, and she'd been practicing for 30 years. "You have a strong case," she told me. "Emma ran away from her mother's care to come to you. That's significant. Karen will say I manipulated her. Karen can say whatever she wants. The court will look at the evidence. And the evidence shows a stable grandmother who was exploited by her own family and still managed to maintain a loving relationship with her grandchild. What about California? Can Karen really take her across the country? Not without the court's approval. I'm filing an emergency motion to prevent relocation pending a full custody evaluation. And if the court rules against me," Dr. Morris looked at me steadily, "then we appeal, and we keep appealing until Emma is old enough to speak for herself." I nodded slowly. "Whatever it takes." Whatever it takes. Day 55. David came to see me. This time he didn't argue. He didn't make excuses. He just sat across from me at the kitchen table and said, "I'm testifying on your behalf." I stared at him. "What?" "At the custody hearing. I'm testifying that Emma should stay with you instead of going to California with Karen." "Why would you do that?" He looked down at his hands. "Because you're right. About everything. About me, about Karen, about what we did to you. I can't undo any of it. But I can do this. Karen will never forgive you. I know. You'll lose any chance of reconciliation. There's no chance anyway. She made that clear." He looked up at me. "But Emma still has a chance to grow up near someone who actually loves her unconditionally. That's worth more than anything Karen or I could give her." I didn't know what to say. "I know you don't trust me," he continued. "I know I destroyed that. But I'm asking you to believe me just this once. I want to make things right." I studied his face, the same face I'd looked at for 48 years, the face of my baby boy, now a man, a flawed, broken, complicated man. "Okay," I said finally. "Okay. I believe you. This once." He let out a shaky breath. "Thank you, Mom." "Don't thank me yet. We still have a fight ahead." "I know, but at least we're fighting together." For the first time in months, I felt something that might have been hope. Small, fragile, uncertain, but hope nonetheless. Day 60. The night before the hearing, I sat in my bedroom and talked to Robert. "I don't know if I can do this," I whispered. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." His photograph smiled back at me, frozen in time. "You always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself, and I need you to believe in me now." I touched the frame gently. "I'm fighting for Emma. I'm fighting for the family we built. And I'm fighting for myself." The house was quiet around me, empty, but not lonely, not anymore. "Tomorrow, everything changes. Whatever happens, I need you to know I did my best. I became the woman you always knew I could be." I set the photograph back on the nightstand and lay down. Tomorrow would bring the battle. Tomorrow would bring the truth. But tonight, I would rest, and I would dream of a future where love won. The morning of the hearing, I woke before dawn. I lay in bed watching the first light creep across the ceiling and thought about everything that had brought me to this moment. The phone call from David asking for help, the slow invasion of my home, the dog on my bed, the cot in the laundry room, the lawyer's office, the eviction notices, Karen's lies, David's betrayal, Emma's tears, 6 months of my life compressed into a single day in court. I got up, showered, and dressed in my best navy suit, the one I'd worn to Robert's funeral. It felt appropriate somehow, a burial of sorts, the burial of the woman I used to be, and the resurrection of the woman I'd become. Betty had flown in the night before. She was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, coffee brewing, toast, waiting. "You look ready," she said. "I don't feel ready." "Nobody ever does. But you'll be fine, Maggie. You've been preparing for this your whole life." "Have I?" She handed me a cup of coffee and looked me straight in the eyes. "Every time you stood up for yourself when people pushed you down, every time you kept going when you wanted to quit, every time you chose dignity over comfort, that's preparation, and today you cash it all in." I took a sip of the coffee. It was too hot, but I welcomed the burn. "What if I lose?" "Then you appeal, and you fight again, and you keep fighting until you win, or until there's nothing left to fight for." "And if there's nothing left?" Betty put her hand on my shoulder. "Then at least you'll know you gave everything, and that's more than most people can say." The courthouse was crowded. Dr. Morris met me at the entrance, briefcase in hand, expression focused. "How are you feeling?" "Terrified." "Good. That means you're taking this seriously." She guided me through the metal detectors and toward the elevator. "Remember what we discussed. Stay calm, answer only what's asked, and don't let Karen's lawyer bait you into an emotional response." "What if the judge sides with her? Then we regroup. But I don't think that's going to happen." "Why not?" She smiled grimly. "Because Karen made too many mistakes. The APS report, the false harassment claims, the financial documents your son is providing. She overplayed her hand, and now she's going to pay for it." We reached the courtroom. David was already there, sitting on a bench outside, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He stood when he saw me. "Mom." "David." We stood there, the weight of everything unsaid pressing between us. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of it. I know that doesn't help, but I need you to hear it. I'm sorry." I heard it. And I looked at my son, this man I'd raised, loved, and nearly lost. "And I'm not ready to forgive you. Not yet. But I'm grateful you're here." He nodded slowly. "I'll take it." The bailiff opened the courtroom doors. "Hayes versus Hayes. All parties, please enter." This was it. I walked into the courtroom and felt the eyes of strangers on me. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, looked up from her papers. Karen was already seated at the opposite table, her lawyer whispering something in her ear. Our eyes met. I expected to see hatred, contempt, rage. Instead, I saw fear. Good. Dr. Morris guided me to our table. Betty took a seat in the gallery behind me. David sat alone on the other side, neither with Karen nor with me, a man caught between two worlds belonging to neither. "All rise," the bailiff announced. "The Honorable Judge Patricia Coleman presiding." The judge took her seat and shuffled through some papers. We're here today to determine temporary custody arrangements for the minor child Emma Hayes, age 9, pending final divorce proceedings between David Hayes and Karen Hayes. I've reviewed the filings from all parties, including a motion from the paternal grandmother Margaret Hayes seeking custody rights. She looked at Karen's lawyer. Mr. Brennan, you may begin. Karen's lawyer stood. He was slick, expensive suit, practiced smile, the kind of man who made his living twisting truths into whatever shape paid best. Your Honor, my client Karen Hayes has been Emma's primary caregiver since birth. She has provided a stable, loving home and wishes to relocate to California, where she has family support and better employment opportunities. And what about the grandmother's claims? Judge Coleman asked. Frankly, Your Honor, Mrs. Margaret Hayes has demonstrated a pattern of unstable behavior. She evicted her own son and grandchildren from her home. She's made wild accusations of financial impropriety. She's attempted to alienate Emma from her mother. I gripped the edge of the table. Dr. Morris put a calming hand on my arm. Your Honor, Mr. Brennan continued, we believe Mrs. Hayes is well-meaning but misguided. Her advanced age and recent emotional outbursts suggest she may not be equipped to handle the responsibility of caring for a young child. Advanced age, emotional outbursts, the same script Karen had used from the beginning, painting me as senile, unstable, unreliable. Dr. Morris, your response, the judge asked. My lawyer stood calm and collected. Your Honor, everything Mr. Brennan just said is not only false, it's a deliberate misrepresentation of documented facts. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. Exhibit A bank statements showing systematic unauthorized transfers from Mrs. Hayes' accounts totaling $43,000. Exhibit B emails between David Hayes and Karen Hayes explicitly discussing how to access these funds without Mrs. Hayes' knowledge. Exhibit C, the Adult Protective Services report filed by Karen Hayes, which was investigated and dismissed as unfounded. Exhibit D, the police report from Karen Hayes' false harassment claim, also dismissed. The judge's eyebrows rose as she reviewed the documents. Your Honor, my client didn't evict her family out of cruelty. She evicted them after 6 months of financial exploitation, emotional abuse, and systematic displacement from her own home. She was forced to sleep in a laundry room so that the family dog could have her bedroom. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge's expression hardened. Is this true, Mr. Brennan? Karen's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Your Honor, there are two sides to every... Is this true? There may have been some temporary living arrangements that... A simple yes or no counselor. He swallowed. Yes, Your Honor, but there were extenuating circumstances. I've heard enough. Judge Coleman turned to Karen. Mrs. Hayes, do you have anything to say for yourself? Karen stood slowly. Her composure was cracking, the polished facade beginning to crumble. Your Honor, everything I did was for my children. David lost his job. We had nowhere to go. Margaret offered to help. And yes, maybe we took advantage of that. But I never meant to hurt her. You never meant to hurt her, the judge repeated. Yet you stole $43,000 from her retirement savings. You filed a false report with Adult Protective Services. You filed a false police report. You displaced her from her own bedroom. And now you want this court to believe you're a fit parent. I am a fit parent. That remains to be determined. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Hayes, Margaret, I'd like to hear from you directly. Why do you want custody of your granddaughter? I stood, legs trembling, heart pounding. Because she's my blood. Because I love her. Because every time her parents fought, she hid in a closet and called me crying. Because she got on a bus alone at 9 years old and came to my house because she felt safer with me than with them. I paused, steadying myself. I'm not perfect, Your Honor. I'm 78 years old and I've made plenty of mistakes. But I never lied to that child. I never used her as a weapon. And I never ever made her feel like she was in the way. The courtroom was silent. I just want to give her a safe place to land. That's all. A home where she's loved unconditionally, where her voice matters, where she doesn't have to hide. Judge Coleman studied me for a long moment. Mr. David Hayes, please rise. David stood looking like a man awaiting execution. You've filed a statement supporting your mother's custody petition. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you're aware that this means you're effectively giving up primary custody of your daughter? Yes, Your Honor. Why? David's voice cracked. Because my mother is right. About everything. Karen and I, we broke our family. We were so focused on ourselves, on our problems, on our marriage falling apart. We forgot that Emma was watching, learning, suffering. He wiped his eyes. My mom didn't forget. Even when we treated her like garbage, she never stopped loving Emma. She never stopped being a grandmother. And right now, Emma needs that more than she needs me. The judge nodded slowly. I'm going to take a 30-minute recess to review all the evidence. When we return, I'll issue my ruling. She banged her gavel. Court is in recess. The longest 30 minutes of my life. Betty sat with me in the hallway holding my hand. You did great, Maggie. Did I can't even remember what I said. You spoke from the heart. That's all that matters. David approached us hesitant. Mom, can I talk to you alone? Betty looked at me. I nodded and she stepped away. David sat beside me on the bench. Whatever happens in there, I want you to know something. What? I've been thinking a lot about Dad, about what he would say if he could see me now. He'd be disappointed. Yeah, he would be. David's voice broke. He'd be ashamed of the man I became, the choices I made, the way I treated you. Probably. But I hope, he'd also say it's not too late. That as long as you're breathing, you can change. You can be better. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Your father believed in second chances, but he also believed that actions speak louder than words. So far, David, all I've heard from you is words. I know, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving I mean them. We'll see. The bailiff appeared in the doorway. Court is resuming. I stood smoothing my skirt. This is it. David reached for my hand and squeezed it once. Good luck, Mom. I walked back into the courtroom, heart pounding in my chest. Judge Coleman was already seated. Karen was at her table looking pale. David took his place alone. Betty sat behind me, her presence a steady anchor. All rise. We rose. Please be seated. We sat. I've reviewed all the evidence presented today, as well as the pre-hearing filings and character statements. The judge folded her hands on the bench. This is a complicated case involving a family that has been torn apart by poor decisions, broken trust, and a fundamental failure of communication. She paused. However, my primary concern is not the adults in this room. My primary concern is Emma Hayes, a 9-year-old girl who has been caught in the crossfire of her family's dysfunction. I held my breath. Based on the evidence, I find that Karen Hayes has demonstrated a pattern of deceit manipulation and disregard for the welfare of her extended family. The financial exploitation of Margaret Hayes is particularly troubling, as is the attempt to use the court system to silence legitimate grievances. Karen made a small, strangled sound. I also find that David Hayes, while complicit in many of these actions, has shown genuine remorse and a willingness to prioritize his daughter's well-being over his own interests. David lowered his head. As for Margaret Hayes, the judge turned to look at me directly. I see a woman who was pushed to her limits, who was forced out of her own home, who was exploited by her own flesh and blood. And despite all of that, she never stopped loving her granddaughter. She never stopped fighting. I felt tears prick at my eyes. Therefore, I am granting temporary custody of Emma Hayes to her grandmother, Margaret Hayes. Karen Hayes will have supervised visitation rights pending a full psychological evaluation. The request to relocate the child to California is denied. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process what had just happened. Betty grabbed me from behind, pulling me into a crushing hug. You did it, Maggie, you did it. David was at my side a moment later, tears streaming down his face. Mom, thank you, thank you. I looked across the courtroom. Karen was sitting motionless, her lawyer speaking urgently in her ear. She looked up and met my eyes. No hatred, no rage, just defeat. I turned away. I had won. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival. And sometimes that's enough. 1 week later, Emma moved in. She arrived with 2 suitcases and a stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 3. David carried her bags to the guest room, now her room, while I watched from the doorway. "Is this really my room?" she asked, eyes wide. "Really and truly. You can decorate it however you want. Even pink. Especially pink." She threw her arms around me. "Thank you, Grandma. Thank you." I held her tight, feeling her small heart beating against mine. "Welcome home, sweetheart." That night after Emma was asleep, David and I sat on the porch. "I found an apartment," he said. "About 20 minutes from here, close enough to visit, far enough to give you space. That sounds reasonable." "I start my new job on Monday, construction like I said. It's hard work, but the pay is decent. I should be able to make the monthly payments without a problem." "Good." He was quiet for a moment. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "You can ask. I might not answer." "Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Truly forgive me?" I looked out at the darkening sky, at the stars beginning to appear one by one. "I don't know, David. Forgiveness isn't a switch I can flip. It's a process, and right now I'm not there yet. But maybe someday, maybe someday." He nodded slowly. "I can live with maybe." He stood and kissed me on the forehead, the first genuine affection he'd shown me in years. "Good night, Mom." "Good night, David." I watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing into the darkness. Then I went inside, locked the door, and walked down the hallway to check on Emma. She was sleeping peacefully, the stuffed elephant tucked under her arm, a small smile on her face. I stood there for a long time, just watching her breathe. This was what I'd fought for. This moment, this peace, this second chance at family. I kissed her forehead gently and whispered, "Sleep well, sweetheart. Grandma's here." Then I walked to my bedroom finally and forever mine, and climbed into bed. Robert's photograph smiled at me from the nightstand. "We did it," I whispered. "We brought her home." "Dad!" I closed my eyes and for the first time in months, slept without dreams. 6 months later, Emma was thriving. She'd enrolled in the local elementary school and made 3 new friends in her first week. Her grades improved. Her nightmares stopped. She smiled more than she cried, laughed more than she worried. Every Saturday, David came over for breakfast. We didn't talk about the past. We talked about Emma's week, her homework, her friends, her hopes. Slowly, carefully, we were rebuilding something. Not what we had before that was gone forever, but something new, something fragile but real. Karen never came to visit. She'd moved to California after all alone to live with her sister. The divorce was finalized 2 months after the custody hearing. She sent Emma birthday cards, Christmas gifts, the occasional phone call. But she was a ghost now, a voice from a distance, no longer a threat. Betty came to visit for Thanksgiving. We cooked a turkey together while Emma set the table arguing about whether stuffing should have sausage in it, the same way we'd argued as children. "This is nice," Betty said, watching Emma carefully fold napkins into swans like I'd taught her. "It is. You seem happy, Maggie." "I am happy, for the first time in years." "Robert would be proud." I looked at my sister, at my granddaughter, at the home I'd fought so hard to keep. "Yeah, I think he would be." After dinner, Emma asked if she could watch a movie with us. We curled up on the couch, the new couch I'd bought to replace Karen's gray monstrosity, and watched The Wizard of Oz, the same movie I'd watched with David when he was Emma's age. "Grandma," Emma said during the tornado scene. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad I live with you." I pulled her closer. "I'm glad you live with me too. Can I stay forever?" I kissed the top of her head. "Forever and ever." She snuggled against me, content, safe, loved. And in that moment I understood something I'd been too afraid to admit during all those months of fighting. I hadn't just saved Emma, she had saved me. 1 year later, I was in the garden planting roses when I heard the front door open. Grandma, look!" Emma came running across the lawn, waving a piece of paper. What is it, sweetheart? I got an A on my science project, the one about butterflies. I took the paper and looked at the bright red A at the top. Emma, this is wonderful. I'm so proud of you. My teacher said it was the best one in the class. Well, of course it was. You worked so hard on it. She beamed, practically glowing with pride. Can we celebrate? Can we get ice cream? Absolutely. Go get your jacket. She ran back inside and I stood there holding her paper, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. This was my life now. Science projects and ice cream runs, bedtime stories and Saturday breakfast. A house full of laughter instead of whispers. A home. David pulled into the driveway as Emma came back out. Dad, I got an A. He scooped her up and swung her around. That's my girl, I knew you could do it. He set her down and looked at me. Mom, do you mind if I join you for ice cream? I hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. Sure, you're paying. He laughed a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard from him in years. Fair enough. The three of us drove to the ice cream shop in town, the same one Robert and I used to take David to when he was a boy. Emma ordered strawberry with sprinkles. David got chocolate chip. I got vanilla, the same as always. We sat at a table by the window watching people walk by, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. Mom, David said quietly, while Emma was distracted by her sprinkles. Yes. Thank you for everything, for not giving up on me, on us. I looked at him, this man who had hurt me so deeply, who had let me down so completely, who was now trying so hard to be better. You're welcome. I mean it. I know I can never make up for what I did, but I'm going to keep trying, every day, for the rest of my life. I reached across the table and put my hand on his. That's all I've ever wanted, David, for you to try. His eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them back. I love you, Mom. 3 words. So simple, so heavy. I love you too, son. Emma looked up from her ice cream. Are you guys being mushy again? David laughed. Maybe a little. Gross. We all laughed. Then the 3 of us together, a family rebuilt from the ruins of the one that came before. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was ours. That night. After Emma was asleep and David had gone home, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea and watched the stars come out. The air was cool, carrying the scent of the roses I'd planted. The neighborhood was quiet. The world felt peaceful. I thought about everything I'd been through, the loss, the betrayal, the fight, the victory. I thought about Robert and what he would say if he could see me now. You did good, Maggie, I imagined him saying. You did real good. I miss you, I whispered to the stars. No answer came, but somehow I felt him there, in the breeze, in the silence, in the steady beat of my own heart. I finished my tea and went inside. On the kitchen counter, I noticed Emma had left a drawing. A crayon picture of 3 people, a tall woman with gray hair, a smaller girl with brown pigtails, and a golden dog. Underneath, in Emma's careful handwriting, my family, me, Grandma, and Bella. I smiled. Bella had stayed with me in the end. Karen hadn't wanted her too much trouble, too many vet bills. So the dog that had once slept in my bed against my will was now curled up in Emma's room every night, loyal guardian of a little girl who needed all the love she could get. I pinned the drawing to the refrigerator and looked at it for a long time. My family. Small. Imperfect. Scarred by battles we shouldn't have had to fight. But ours. I turned off the lights and walked down the hallway, pausing at Emma's door to listen to her soft breathing. Then I went to my bedroom, changed into my nightgown, and climbed into bed. Robert's photograph was waiting on the nightstand as always. One more day down, I whispered. One more day of fighting. One more day of winning. I closed my eyes, and I slept. Not the sleep of exhaustion or defeat, the sleep of peace, the sleep of a woman who had walked through fire and emerged not unburned but unbroken. I am Margaret Ann Hayes. I am 79 years old. I lost my husband. I lost my son. I almost lost myself. But I fought back. And I won. Not because I was stronger than anyone else. Not because I had more resources or better lawyers or luck on my side. I won because I refused to disappear, because I remembered that my life belonged to me, because I chose dignity over silence, boundaries over peace myself, over everyone who tried to erase me. To anyone listening to my story, anyone who feels small, invisible, forgotten, let me tell you this: you are not too old to fight. You are not too weak to stand up. You are not too tired to take back what is yours. Your voice matters. Your dignity matters. You matter. And it is never ever too late to come home to yourself. This is my story. And this is my truth. I gave my whole life to my family. They gave my bed to their dog. And that same week they all got eviction letters signed by me, because a woman who knows her worth is unstoppable, because a grandmother's love is fiercer than any storm, and because home isn't just a place, it's a choice. I chose myself, and I would make that choice again 1,000 times over, without hesitation, without regret, without looking back. The end.